The desperate plea. The morning sun cast long shadows across the wheat fields of New Montana as Captain Elena Vasquez tended to her small farm. 300 years had passed since the Treaty of Exile banned humans from participating in galactic warfare. Elena had been only a child when the Galactic Council made their decision, but she remembered the stories her grandfather told about the old days when humans fought alongside alien species across the stars. Elena wiped sweat from her brow and looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, beyond the blue atmosphere of her peaceful world, a war was raging. The news feeds had been full of reports about something called the Devourers, an ancient alien race that had emerged from the dark regions of space 6 months ago. They consumed everything in their path, leaving dead systems behind them like a plague of locusts. The rumble of an approaching transport interrupted her thoughts. Elena frowned as she watched the sleek alien vessel land in her field, crushing several rows of wheat. The ship bore the markings of the Galactic Council, something she had not seen on her world in decades. 3 figures emerged from the craft. The first was tall and reptilian with emerald scales that caught the sunlight. His 4 arms moved with practiced diplomacy as he approached. The second was insectoid, his carapace gleaming black with military decorations. The third figure surprised, Elena most of all, another human, elderly with silver hair and the bearing of someone who had spent years in political circles. Captain Vasquez, the reptilian being said, his voice carrying the artificial translation device most aliens used. When speaking to humans, I am Ambassador Kethamor of the Zephyrian Council. This is General Thane Koros of the Galactic Defense Alliance, and Dr. Marcus Chen, your former colleague from Earth's Diplomatic Corps. Elena set down her farming tools and studied the 3 visitors. She had retired from active military service 50 years ago, but her training never left her. She could read the desperation in their postures, the way they held themselves like beings carrying the weight of impossible decisions. I know why you're here, Elena said simply. The answer is no. Dr. Chen stepped forward, his weathered face creased with worry. Elena, you haven't heard what we're asking yet. I don't need to hear it, she replied, turning back toward her. Small farmhouse. The Treaty of Exile was clear. Humans are forbidden from participating in galactic military operations. We agreed to those terms. General Koros clicked his mandibles in what Elena recognized as frustration. The Devourers have consumed 17 star systems in the past month alone. Our military forces cannot stop them. Traditional weapons are useless against their bioships. Elena paused at her doorstep. That's unfortunate, but it's not humanity's problem anymore. You made that very clear 3 centuries ago. Ambassador Kethamor's neck frill fluttered in agitation. Captain, you do not understand the severity of the situation. The Devourers are not like any enemy we have faced before. They do not negotiate, they do not retreat, and they do not show mercy. They consume entire populations and convert the biomass into more of their kind. Sounds familiar, Elena said, remembering the historical records of why humans had been banned in the first place. And let me guess, your honorable warfare tactics aren't working. The 3 visitors exchanged glances. Dr. Chen cleared his throat. Elena, there's something else. We've discovered historical records from the last time the Devourers appeared. In this galaxy. It was over 2,000 years ago. Despite herself, Elena turned around. And? Humans were the only species that ever successfully defeated them, Dr. Chen continued. Your ancestors drove them back into dark space using methods that the other galactic species found disturbing. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She had studied the old military records, the ones that detailed why humans had been exiled from galactic warfare. It wasn't because humans were evil or conquest-minded. It was because humans approached warfare differently than any other species in the galaxy. Where other races fought with honor and followed strict codes of conduct, humans fought to win at any cost. The Galactic Council is prepared to temporarily lift the Treaty of Exile, Ambassador Kethamor said, his voice carrying a formal tone that barely concealed his desperation. We are requesting human military assistance in dealing with the Devourer. Threat. Elena laughed bitterly. Temporarily lift the treaty? How generous of you. And what happens after we save the galaxy again? Do we go back to being the monsters everyone fears? General Koros stepped forward, his multiple eyes focusing on Elena with intensity. Captain, I have lost 3 fleets to these creatures. Each engagement results in total annihilation of our forces. We have tried every conventional strategy, every weapon in our arsenal. Nothing works. They adapt to our tactics faster than we can develop new ones. Because you're fighting them like you fight each other, Elena said, finally understanding what they were really asking. Clean, honorable, by the rules. The Devourers don't play by rules. Dr. Chen nodded grimly. The historical records show that your ancestors used what other species called terror tactics. Psychological warfare, targeting civilian populations to force surrender, using captured enemy technology against them. Methods that violated every galactic convention of warfare. Elena walked to her porch and sat down heavily in her rocking chair. The irony was not lost on her. For 300 years, humans had been peaceful farmers, artists, scientists, and traders. They had proven they could live without war, without conquest, without the violent tendencies that had frightened the galaxy. And now, that same galaxy was begging them to remember how to be monsters. There's more, Ambassador Kethamore said quietly. The Devourers have been moving systematically toward the core worlds. Based on their current trajectory, they will reach Earth in approximately 18 months. Elena's blood ran cold. Earth was humanity's birth world, home to 12 billion people who had never known war. They had no defenses, no military, no way to protect themselves. The Treaty of Exile had stripped them of all weapons more powerful than farming equipment. You're asking me to choose between letting my species die or becoming what you exiled us for being, Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. We're asking you to save the galaxy, General Koros replied. And in doing so, save your own people. Elena stood up and walked to the edge of her porch, looking out over the peaceful fields of grain. In the distance, she could see the lights of the small human settlement where she had lived for the past 50 years. Children played in the streets, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. None of them had ever seen a battlefield, never known the horror of war. If I agree to this, Elena said slowly, it won't be temporary. Once you unleash what humans are capable of, there's no going back. The galaxy will remember why you feared us in the first place. Dr. Chen approached her, his voice gentle. Elena, I've seen the aftermath of Devourer attacks. There are no survivors, no prisoners, no negotiation. They are extinction given form. If we don't stop them, there won't be a galaxy left to fear anything. Elena closed her eyes and thought of her grandfather's stories. He had been there during the Great Purge, the event that led to humanity's exile. He told her about the choices they had to make, the lines they had to cross, the prices they had to pay. He also told her about the billions of lives they had saved by being willing to do what others could not. I'll need complete autonomy, Elena said finally. No restrictions on tactics, no limits on methods, no interference from the Galactic Council. Ambassador. Kethamore's frill flattened against his neck in what Elena recognized as fear. Captain, surely you understand we cannot give you unlimited authority. Then find another solution, Elena interrupted. You came here because you're desperate, because you're losing, because nothing you've tried has worked. Either you trust us to do what needs to be done, or you watch the galaxy burn. The 3 visitors conferred quietly among themselves for several minutes. Elena could hear the urgency in their whispered conversations, the weight of impossible decisions pressing down on them. Finally, Ambassador Kethamore turned back to her. The Galactic Council will vote on your terms within the next 72 hours, he said formally. In the meantime, we request that you begin preparations for the possibility of human military intervention. Elena nodded slowly. I'll contact the old networks. If the vote goes through, we'll be ready. As the alien transport lifted off from her field, Elena remained on her porch watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, Ancient evil was consuming entire worlds, and the galaxy was about to learn why humanity had been exiled in the first place. She thought of her grandfather's final words to her. Sometimes, Elena, the monster is the only thing that can defeat the devil. She walked into her house and activated her old communication array, sending coded messages to humans scattered across the galaxy. Former soldiers, strategists, and warriors who had spent 3 centuries pretending to be farmers and merchants. The network that had remained dormant for 300 years suddenly came alive with purpose. The galaxy was about to remember why they had banned humans from warfare, and Elena prayed they would still consider it a fair trade when the dust settled. The Awakening Storm. The abandoned military station on Kepler 442b had been dark for over 2 centuries, its corridors echoing only with the whispers of history. Now those same corridors buzzed with activity as Elena Vasquez led a team of 50 humans through the facility, reactivating systems that had been sleeping since the Treaty of Exile. "Power grid is online," reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Walsh, a woman in her 60s who had spent the last 40 years teaching mathematics to alien children. "Weapon systems responding normally." Elena nodded, watching her team work with Fodiso, the efficiency of people who had never truly forgotten their training. These were humanity's hidden warriors, scattered across the galaxy as farmers, teachers, traders, and artists. All of them had maintained their skills in secret, passing knowledge to their children, keeping the old ways alive just in case this day ever came. "Ma'am," called out Dr. James Foster, formerly humanity's leading xenobiologist, now officially a botanical researcher. "I've analyzed the Devourer biosamples the Galactic Defense Alliance provided. You're going to want to see this." Elena joined him at the holographic display where a 3-dimensional image of a Devourer organism rotated slowly. The creature was unlike anything in the galactic databases, a writhing mass of organic machinery that seemed to shift and adapt even as they watched. "They're not really individuals," Dr. Foster explained, his voice carrying the excitement of scientific discovery mixed with horror. "Each Devourer ship is actually a collective organism, millions of smaller units working together. They share information instantaneously across their entire force, which is why conventional tactics don't work," Elena realized. "Attack one ship, and all the others immediately adapt to your strategy." "Exactly. But there's something else." Dr. Foster manipulated the display, zooming in on what appeared to be a neural network. "They have a centralized command structure, not a physical location, but a quantum consciousness that coordinates their collective behavior." Elena studied the display, her tactical mind already working through possibilities. "Can we disrupt it?" "Not with any technology the Galactic Defense Alliance possesses," Dr. Foster admitted. "But we might be able to exploit it. If we can feed false information into their network, we could potentially turn their greatest advantage into a weakness." Before Elena could respond, the station's communication array crackled to life. Ambassador Kethmore's image appeared on the main screen, his reptilian features tight with strain. "Captain Vasquez, the Galactic Council has voted. The Treaty of Exile is temporarily suspended. You have full military authority to engage the Devourer threat." Elena felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. "Understood, Ambassador. Have you prepared the fleet as requested?" 300 ships from 12 different species are at your disposal," Kethmore replied, though his tone suggested he was far from comfortable with the arrangement. "General Koros commands the fleet and has agreed to follow your strategic directions." "Good. Tell the General to maintain defensive positions around the core worlds. We'll handle the Devourers directly." Kethmore's frill fluttered nervously. "Captain, surely you don't intend to engage them with only human forces? The fleet is at your disposal." "The fleet would be a liability," Elena interrupted. "Your people fight with honor, following predictable patterns. The Devourers have already adapted to those patterns. We need to do something they've never seen before." After the communication ended, Elena turned to address her assembled team. 50 humans who had spent 3 centuries in exile now tasked with saving the galaxy that had banished them. "You all know why we're here," she began, her voice carrying the authority of someone born to command. 300 years ago, our ancestors were exiled because they were willing to cross lines that other species wouldn't cross. Today, we're going to cross those lines again. She activated the tactical display, showing the current positions of devourer forces. They've consumed 19 systems and are moving toward the galactic core. Traditional engagement has resulted in total defeat for every force sent against them. They adapt too quickly, learn too fast, and coordinate too perfectly. Elena paused, looking at each face in the room. But they've never faced humans before. They don't know how we think, how we fight, or what we're willing to sacrifice. That's our advantage. Commander Walsh raised her hand. What's the plan, Captain? Elena smiled grimly. We're going to teach them to fear us. The next phase of the operation began immediately. Using the abandoned military station as their base, the human team began implementing strategies that would have horrified the Galactic Defense Alliance. They studied not just devourer biology, but their psychology, their behavioral patterns, their apparent motivations. Dr. Foster's breakthrough came 18 hours later. "I've found it," he announced, calling Elena to his workstation. "The devourers aren't just consuming biomass for food. They're trying to achieve something specific." Elena examined the data stream scrolling across multiple screens. "What kind of something?" "Evolutionary perfection," Dr. Foster explained. "Each species they consume adds new genetic information to their collective. They're trying to create the ultimate life form by combining the best traits of every species in the galaxy." Elena felt pieces of a puzzle clicking into place in her mind. That's why they haven't attacked Earth yet. They're saving humans for last. Exactly. According to their behavioral patterns, they view humans as the most valuable genetic resource in the galaxy. Our adaptability, our problem-solving abilities, our capacity for both creativity and destruction. They want to incorporate all of it. Elena walked to the window overlooking the station's launch bays, where human engineers were modifying ships with technology that violated every galactic treaty. Then we're going to give them exactly what they want. The first engagement came, 72 hours later. A single human ship, the Prometheus, approached a devourer fleet that had just finished consuming the Altarian system. The devourers immediately adapted their formation, expecting another conventional attack. Instead, the Prometheus broadcast a surrender signal. Elena watched from the bridge as massive bioships surrounded her vessel. The devourers had never encountered surrender before. Every species they'd faced had fought to the death. Their curiosity was palpable as they extended organic tendrils toward the human ship. "Now," Elena whispered, the Prometheus exploded in a brilliant flash of light. But this wasn't a conventional explosive. It was a quantum cascade device that Dr. Foster had designed specifically to disrupt the devourer's neural network. The explosion sent false information flooding through the collective consciousness, making them believe they were under attack from multiple directions. In the confusion that followed, 12 more human ships appeared from stealth positions and began systematic strikes against the bioships. But these weren't attacks meant to destroy. They were surgical strikes designed to capture and reprogram devourer organisms. Within 6 hours, the human team had turned an entire devourer fleet against itself. The news of the victory spread quickly, through galactic channels. For the first time since the devourer threat had emerged, an engagement had ended in complete defeat for the ancient enemy. But the cost was becoming clear to the watching galaxy. General Koros contacted Elena directly, his insectoid features displaying what she recognized as horror. "Captain, we've reviewed your tactical reports. You used your own people as bait. The crew of the Prometheus died in that explosion. 18 people died to save 18 star systems," Elena replied calmly. "That's a trade any human would make." "But you didn't ask them," Koros protested. "You ordered them to their deaths." Elena's expression hardened. "General, did you want us to save the galaxy or follow your rules, because we can't do both?" The conversation ended abruptly, but Elena knew the damage was done. The galaxy was watching humanity's methods with growing alarm. They had asked for human help, but they hadn't been prepared for what that help would look like. The pattern continued over the next several weeks. Human forces engaged devourer fleets using tactics that no other species would consider. Sacrifice plays, psychological warfare, exploitation of captured enemies, and strategies that seemed to border on cruelty. But they worked. One by one, devourer fleets fell to human ingenuity. The ancient enemy that had seemed unstoppable was learning to retreat, to fear, to hesitate before engaging. For the first time in their existence, the devourers were discovering what it meant to be prey. The final confrontation came at the edge of the Galactic core, where the largest devourer fleet had assembled for what appeared to be a final assault on the civilized worlds. Elena led the human fleet personally, 50 modified ships against a force that outnumbered them 1,000 to 1. All ships, this is Captain Vasquez. Elena broadcast on all frequencies, knowing the devourers were listening. Today we finish what our ancestors started 2,000 years ago. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for every species that ever looked up at the stars and dreamed of tomorrow. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Human ships moved with coordination that seemed almost telepathic, executing maneuvers that should have been impossible. They fought with a desperation and creativity that the devourers had never encountered, turning every disadvantage into an opportunity. When the dust settled, the devourer fleet was gone. Not destroyed, but fundamentally changed. Elena's team had managed to reprogram the collective consciousness, convincing the ancient enemy that their quest for perfection was flawed. The devourers retreated to dark space, carrying with them the understanding that some prey could become predators. In the aftermath, Elena found herself once again standing before the Galactic Council. But this time, the chamber was filled with a different kind of tension. The assembled representatives looked at her with a mixture of gratitude and fear. Captain Vasquez, Ambassador Kethmore began formally. The Galactic Council wishes to express its gratitude for humanity's role in ending the devourer crisis. Elena nodded but remained silent, waiting for what she knew was coming. However, Kethmore continued, your methods have raised significant concerns among the member species. The tactics employed by human forces violated numerous galactic conventions regarding the conduct of warfare. Elena finally spoke, her voice carrying the weariness of someone who had carried impossible burdens. Ambassador, you asked us to save the galaxy. We did. The price was exactly what we told you it would be. General Koros leaned forward. But at what cost, Captain? Your people showed a capacity for warfare that frankly terrifies us. The willingness to sacrifice your own, to use methods that seem to lack any moral consideration. We saved 60 billion lives across 12 systems, Elena interrupted. If that terrifies you, then perhaps you should ask yourself why you needed to be saved by people you're afraid of. The chamber fell silent. Elena could see the council members struggling with the same contradiction that had led to humanity's original exile. They needed human capabilities, but they feared human methods. Dr. Chen, who had remained silent throughout the proceedings, finally stood up. Perhaps the question isn't whether humanity should be exiled again, but whether we've learned to understand each other better. Elena looked around the chamber at the representatives of dozens of species, all of whom owed their continued existence to human sacrifice. The Treaty of Exile remains in effect, she said finally. Humans will return to our peaceful worlds and our quiet lives. But remember this. We didn't fight to conquer you. We fought to protect you. The choice of whether you see us as guardians or monsters is yours to make. As Elena left the chamber, she thought about her grandfather's words, one more time. Sometimes the monster was the only thing that could defeat the devil. But perhaps it was possible for monsters to choose to be protectors instead. The galaxy would never again forget why humans had been banned from warfare. But for the first time, they might also understand why that same capability made humans the most valuable allies they could ever have.